We will just wait for the 2-minute mark and get started here. Gabby and I were just laughing about how my cat is asleep right now, which is rare. He's usually being a menace. And so we'll see if we can make it through this whole hour without him jumping in front of the camera. But
maybe we'll have a guest.
Yeah, we might have a guest appearance. I think that's the best part about work from home is meeting everyone's pets and children, oftentimes accidentally.
Yes, definitely.
Yep. All right. Gabby, how is it up in San Francisco today?
It's good. It's really sunny. Yeah, clear day.
Like that.
I walked to Starbucks this morning. It was really nice weather out. So yeah.
Amazing. I always like to ask people as an icebreaker on these what we had for breakfast this morning. I like breakfast. I usually eat breakfast today. I just had black coffee because I ran out of time. So I had a really sad breakfast today. I'm curious what'd you get from Starbucks?
I have my go-to. I always get a soy latte and that's it.
Soy milk. I like this. There's so many other milks nowadays that are trendy.
I know. I can't keep up with all the milk trends these days.
I appreciate that you still like soy milk. I do as well.
Yes.
So big fan. It's a good milk. My dad's side of the family is from Japan, so I'm also a soy milk fan. But lately, I feel like I really have to defend it. People who like oat milk, I like oat milk, but people who only like oat milk are pretty loud about oat milk being the best. So
it's like when someone gets an air fryer. It's like everything has to be cooked in an air fryer.
Exactly. And it's all they talk about. And suddenly like they're your friend that you used to be friends with, but now they're just like the air fryer person.
Yes.
All right. We are at the 2-minute mark. So we can go ahead and get started here. Everybody who's joined so far, thanks a lot for joining us for our webinar on BoxCamp, the secret to go-to-market onboarding and success at Box. As always, the webinar will be recorded, so no need to memorize everything that we were saying today. We will send you a copy of the recording and the deck in the next 24 hours. And for those of us who don't know WorkRamp and are joining for the first time, WorkRamp is the all-in-one learning platform for customers, partners, and employees. Our modern training platform powers learning for top companies like Box, Zoom, and Reddit. If y'all don't know me, I'm Danielle. I'm the Director of Sales here at WorkRamp. And today, I think this webinar guest holds a very special place in our heart because our co-founders, Ted and Arsh, both came from Box. And today we're joined by Gabby Petrone, who is the Senior Go-to-Market Enablement Manager at Box. Gabby, so happy to have you on with us. I know I've known you for a while, so I know your story, but would you mind giving everyone else a quick intro here?
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much, Danielle, for having me and the WorkRamp team. Super excited to be here today and share some of our stories at Box. But I'm Gabby Petrone. I am on our go-to-market enablement team, and I've been at Box for almost 3 years now, and I've been in the enablement world space for about 4.5. I'm currently based out of San Francisco. And fun fact, I was born and raised in Las Vegas and grew up in a very cultural home. My mom is from Taiwan and my dad's from Italy. So it's always fun in the house as a kid. But yeah, super excited to be here.
Love that. We are so happy to have you. Growing up in Vegas is definitely a fun fact. And I love that, that kind of multicultural household as well. Background on you, I would love to hear how you came into go-to-market enablement in the first place.
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. So I taught group fitness classes as a side hustle, like right when I started working after college, and would just teach spin classes or bar classes kind of before and after work. And I was in a lead gen role and in a sales role a while back and was kind of looking for the next step, wanted a new challenge and couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do next. And a few of my coworkers at the time would always take my spin class and they're like, well, why don't you try sales training? It's just like teaching a spin class. And I was like, no, it's completely different. But anyways, fast forward a few years later, here I am, kind of all stemmed from a spin class one night. But yeah, very excited to be in the enablement world. And it's been a very fun journey.
I love that. What a journey. Okay, so great. So today our agenda is hopefully going to be as fun as a spin class. We will first cover an overview of the go-to-market enablement programs at Box. Then we'll take a deeper dive into BoxCamp, and Gabby's going to lead us through that. And then for the end, we have a crowd favorite, learnings, and a live AMA portion, Ask Me Anything. So friendly reminder here, please drop your questions in the comment section or in the Q&A, and we will be able to catch all of those at the end there. Okay, so to kick things off, Gabby, I'd love to take a closer look at the go-to-market enablement function that you hold at Box here. Maybe to start, I'd love you to walk me through what programs your team owns today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really lucky to be on a team with some incredible women at Box, and kind of our mission statement for the fiscal year really supports all of the programs we own. And that's to support the onboarding and ongoing success of our customer facing go-to-market teams. And by extension, that's really Box customers, from onboarding to all ongoing enablement programs. So anything our team owns will be onboarding globally, any product launches, skills-based training like prospecting, discovery, negotiation, anything on corporate messaging, some of the tools that we're leveraging. So it's kind of a plethora of everything you would ever need to be in a customer-facing role.
Awesome. And of all of that, what are you all currently focused on today?
Yeah, so our main focuses today are really standardizing our go-to-market onboarding. We'll be sharing a short amount of time here that onboarding's changed a lot in the past year with the pivot to remote work. So really standardizing across all of the teams and having a clear source of enablement and onboarding through the whole journey of a new hire. And they're always boarding. So once they complete their onboarding, like kind of what's next to there. We're also looking to drive consistency in all areas. So really having clear metrics and programs and benchmarks of what enablement activities look like. And I personally focus on our SMB sales segment as well. So I'm really working with key stakeholders to find gaps in the segment and solve for them and give all of our reps the manpower they need to close big deals.
Love that. And we are just kind of launching our SMB segment at WorkRamp today. So I am definitely going to pick your brain on how to best do that. When it comes to sales onboarding, do you have any kind of overall philosophies you live by? If so, I'd love to hear what those are.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of learn by doing. I know it sounds very cliche, but I swear it works. But my main job is to facilitate and structure programming that can be and cater to all needs. So to me, when I look at sales onboarding, I actually relate it to like getting your license, or like when you turn 16 and start driving. So if you think about it, you're 15 and a half, you have to take a test and you get your permit, and you know just enough about how to drive. You know how to start the car, you know, to put the seatbelt on, you know when to make a right or left, you know what to do, but you're not really going to get good until you start practicing and spend more time there. So if you think about it, sales onboarding is like your permit and just starting to drive, but like you're not going to be a good parallel parker overnight, and you're not going to be good at merging on and off a freeway overnight. And that stuff you learn over time, just like in a sales role. It takes time to learn a product. It takes time to develop those skills. And over time, you'll be that great driver that can do anything.
I love that. Learn by doing is great. I know I personally had to scratch a few parked cars early in my sales career to get the sales process down. So
I definitely had to as well.
Yep. Okay. And I remember when you all first purchased WorkRamp, I remember working with you kind of during that evaluation of the partnership. I know COVID actually really fast-tracked the implementation of our LMS for your team. Would love to just maybe take me back to last year. What went through your mind as your team had to pivot to fully virtual remote onboarding, and kind of where did we help, or what did you need from us during that transition there?
Yeah, absolutely. And just for context for everyone here, our onboarding was always fully live. Like we would fly everyone out to headquarters for 2 weeks to get their whole go-to-market immersive onboarding experience. And if someone told me, let's say in January of 2020, I would ever have to run onboarding for fully virtual, I probably would have laughed in their face and said, absolutely not. But fast forward and here we are. So after a year of remote onboarding, we learned a ton, and we've landed on what works best for our business. And honestly, WorkRamp was exceptional during our transition. I don't know what we would have done without it. It kind of was just perfect timing there. So what we ended up doing was we signed our contract, Danielle. I think it was the day everything shut down in California, right? Because
Yep.
I remember being on that.
I remember.
Yeah, but we actually used it as our UAT testing during our implementation. So we were just literally, we signed the contract, and I think I had like 4 days to put together all of our onboarding curriculum into WorkRamp and then run a virtual onboarding that way. So it was very quick. But honestly, I don't know what we would have done without WorkRamp. I don't know how we would have gotten all that information to all those different roles and all those different time zones.
Wow. Thanks for saying that. We love working with you all, and we're just glad we could be there in this time of need. I know COVID was unexpected, but it definitely made remote onboarding, I guess, more relevant than ever. I'm so glad you all were able to adapt there. Awesome. And then question for you before we go into BoxCamp, I'd love to hear, what are some things you learned from launching onboarding programs in the past that you made sure to weave into BoxCamp?
Yeah, absolutely. So my top lesson learned is change is the real only constant. And for us, we learned that experiential learning works the best. And when we had to transition to self-paced, we lost a lot of that experiential learning. So it was really interesting figuring out like what would work and what would fit our needs. I'd say I'm honored to get to work with some amazing teammates. And I really want to take this time to call out a member of my team, and her name is Laurel Bonsack. You should all look her up on LinkedIn. But she joined last year, probably around July timeframe. So we were a few months into the pandemic, and really just kind of helped as a partner in crime and drove our, teamwork to make and revamp this program to make it world-class and scalable to the new normal. So I think looking back, there's a lot of different things we've done in a lot of areas we've been able to interweave into BoxCamp, and we finally landed on a motion that works for us today. But it's probably going to change because this office is open. We're going to have to start figuring out what's next, but excited to take you guys through our process on how we got there.
Amazing. Yes, I'm so excited to see it. I'm also excited to continue partnering with you and watch you go from, in person to fully remote to hybrid. I know you all can do it. You and Laurel are a great team. So Gabby, if you want to walk us through how BoxCamp is structured, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you now.
Yes, absolutely. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me know if everyone can see this. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep, you're good to go.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and dive into go-to-market onboarding at Box today. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off with the history and background of our BoxCamp program, talk about how we pivoted to virtual onboarding last year, give you all an overview of onboarding today, talk a little bit about onboarding to everboarding, and then we'll walk through how we deconstructed and got to where we are today. So let's go ahead and start with the history of BoxCamp. It's a very special place for us at Box, but it's our go-to-market foundational onboarding for all customer-facing roles. So anyone that joins Box who will be in our go-to-market organization attends BoxCamp. It's part of their ramp, it's mandatory, and our main objectives of BoxCamp are to really teach the foundational principles to all of our new hires. So this can be anything from use cases to pricing, to product, to our messaging, how to meet and engage with all the various teams you'll be working with, and deep diving on some of the tools that you would be using in your everyday life. Throughout the history of Box too, BoxCamp was actually our first enablement activity ever. And it kind of was ahead of the curve of what we see enablement as today. And it really shaped our go-to-market enablement team that we are now. So I'll talk a little more about that on the next slide when we go into the timeline. But my favorite piece of BoxCamp is the community and the relationship building. And this campfire logo you see here was actually created by a colleague of mine a few years ago. And this was actually a sticker that every single BoxCamp graduate received when they completed BoxCamp. And these were treated as like precious royalty at our company. Like, it's so funny. They were on computers and water bottles left and right to showcase the badge of honor of completing BoxCamp. And whenever someone would go back to the office after their onboarding, everyone's like, where's your sticker? Where'd you put it? And we've had some remarkable graduates throughout the years as well. And I think what makes BoxCamp so special is the relationships that it fosters and the community it builds. So here's a fun photo of an early cohort. One thing I want to call out is our current fearless leader. Her name's Hillary Terrell. She's actually in this picture, and this was her BoxCamp years ago. And I know she's still engaged with everyone in this photo. We also have some nice alumni, as Danielle mentioned. We have our very own Ted Blosser from WorkRamp. And this was actually his day one badge photo when he started at Box years ago, because BoxCamp is where we took that badge photo. That was like your passport. It's your photo forever. So this was his new hire badge photo. And Ted also became a star presenter all over Box. And this was one of his bios from back in the day that we found. So you can see he was a platform product manager at the time and talked about his sales background and his programming enjoyment in his spare time. So fun tokens to share there in the history of BoxCamp.
That is amazing. Thank you so much for this gift.
I'll make sure you have all the screenshots.
I need copies. Thank you.
Yeah. But going to the timeline, this is where I really want to show you all the evolution of BoxCamp through the last decade, actually. So back in 2010, it started as a live new hire training hosted at our headquarters, which is in Los Altos at the time. And it was run by our sales productivity team. So this team was really responsible for BoxCamp and sales productivity. A few years later, it actually transitioned into go-to-market enablement. So we wanted a true one-team go-to-market motion where we combined customer success and consulting and our sales engineers and all our other various roles like marketing and others. In 2018, it actually became a 2-week program. So we scaled from 1 week to 2 week, and we really focus on experiential learning here. So think of labs and a lot of live role play and exercises and being in that classroom. We're fortunate enough at our headquarters in Redwood City, we actually had a whole training center where we had 2 large classrooms we would leverage for BoxCamp, and hopefully we'll be back pretty soon. In January of last year, so 2020, we actually pivoted back to a 1-week model because we wanted to spend less time in the classroom and more time for everyone to be out in the field, meeting their teams, getting to know their peers. And I guess, we just ran one and then the world changed. So we had to pivot a little quick there. But then in March of 2020, as we mentioned earlier, we purchased WorkRamp after working with Danielle's awesome team. And then April 2020 was when BoxCamp had to become fully virtual. So it actually ran as our implementation tester to see how WorkRamp would work for us internally. We went live with WorkRamp at the whole company in May of 2020. And then February of this year, we revamped our all new BoxCamp with our current hybrid model, which I'll share a little bit about in a few minutes here. So really wanted to spend some time on the pivot to remote onboarding and some lessons learned and challenges that we experienced. So as we mentioned already, the pivot to remote onboarding was really quick, literally like, hey, no one can travel. You have 30 new hires starting in 4 days, like good luck, figure it out. And we had many challenges in the beginning, such as supporting time zones. Like we had to train everyone on how to use our product when we had someone in San Francisco, New York, London, Germany, Japan, and Australia. And I mean, at least we had a time machine. I don't really know how we would have done that. Oddly enough, one of our biggest challenges was like laptop arrival and setup. And especially with COVID and signatures not being required and having to send credentials, that was a big hurdle. And if new hires didn't get their computers in time, we really had no way of running our onboarding programs. No live interaction was definitely hard for us in the beginning too. And I think it was just hard for everyone last year. No one really knew what was happening. And we had some big lessons learned, such as what the most effective balance would be of content and how to recognize our small wins, how to fail fast, and how to pivot quickly. And then we quickly learned that in an environment that was remote, the more role specific and cohort model we could foster, the better. So I'll just show another screenshot. This is a snapshot of our internal WorkRamp admin side, and you can see a list of some of the various role-specific paths that we quickly implemented. So I will go ahead and give you guys all an overview of onboarding today. So this is a snapshot of our current go-to-market onboarding journey and what it looks like at a high level. So every single new hire that joins our go-to-market organization goes through BoxCamp. And not to mention, they actually start with a 2-day HR side training of the house, which we call new hire orientation, which is owned by our talent and belonging team. So once they graduate and complete new hire orientation, they start BoxCamp if they're in the go-to-market org. I also want to call out that my team is also structured to support and fit this model that you see up on this slide. So we have a series of role-specific enablement partners that support the roles you see in that middle column there in the 30, 60, 90-day plans. So we have someone on my team who focuses on lead gen, so our SDRs and our OBRs. I support our SMB segment. We have someone for mid-market enterprise sales. We have someone for sales engineering. We have someone who supports go-to-market managers and someone for customer success and someone for consulting. In addition to this, we also have members that focus specifically on BoxCamp. And then we also have regional members that support EMEA and Japan, so we can support the time zones and some of the more regional specific programs going on there. So BoxCamp is our consistency for all go-to-market roles, and it's the global checkpoint of completion and certification for a new hire that's still tied to that new hire orientation side of the house. Once they complete BoxCamp, that's when we kick off our 30, 60, 90 role-specific onboarding by path. So you'll see all these roles listed out have a various different amount of things that take place in their onboarding. And in addition to that, I like to call this the everboarding or the global onboarding programs. And these are just things that my team's constantly running. So in addition to onboarding, we have our biweekly Tuesday training calls, which we call the GET calls, and it stands for Global Enablement Tuesdays. We have programs called our fundamentals that we've recently rolled out. So that's like, think sales skills fundamentals. So discovery, prospecting, negotiation, deal structuring, objection handling, all of the soft skills. And then we also have our global go-to-market kickoff, which we support annually as well. So always a lot going on, but always a lot of great stuff. But this is what the current state looks like that we pivoted to earlier in February. So as far as a timeline perspective, there's a few different ways that we do this today, and that's having an on-cycle week and an off-cycle week. And the reason we did this was to align with start dates and be able to scale our programs we offer. And we do this by offering BoxCamp Live monthly. So what I mean by this is if a new hire is joining on an on week, they would go to New Hire Orientation, the program run by our talent and belonging team, for the first 2 days. We would pick them up for BoxCamp on their third day, so that Wednesday, and they would be in live programming their first 2 weeks. And coupled with this live program is their BoxCamp virtual curriculum, which is all run in WorkRamp. And then once they complete that first week, that's when they kick off their role-specific onboarding. So lots going on in the beginning. And then for a new hire who's joining on an off-cycle week, it looks a little different. So they would attend new hire orientation, then actually get started on their virtual WorkRamp curriculum in addition to their 30, 60, 90 onboarding program. Then they would attend BoxCamp Live in their third week. So the great piece here is we get to actually open up for more networking among the cohorts and let the new hires intermingle with more new hires as well. So excited to take you guys all through now what we actually cover in BoxCamp. So this is our snapshot and what it looks like today. So once again, couldn't have gotten here without Laurel Bonsack on my team, who's done some exceptional work and helped frame up what this current model looks like. And with her true partnership, we've been able to iterate a model that works for us today, which is what you all see on this screen, to provide our new hires with that go-to-market foundation they need to be successful and kickstart their onboarding journey in this remote world that we're currently living. So this is our model. What you see on the screen is actually the pathway for a closing sales rep. So we cover a vast amount of topics live and then couple them with WorkRamp paths. And all of our paths in WorkRamp are actually designed to map to the live training sessions. So a new hire will take all the relevant coursework prior to attending the live session. So I'll give you all an example. What you'll see like compete on here. So prior to the live session in week 2, they would have completed the compete pre-work in week 1 of their WorkRamp pathway. One thing I want to call out as well is the topics that you see in bold on this slide. And those are actually certifications and clear checkpoints for a new hire to complete in order to graduate from BoxCamp. So these are actually run as challenges in WorkRamp, and all of our people managers are reviewers. So really exciting to kind of get that energy up and really teach back to see, hey, is what we're learning resonating? Is it sticking? Is everyone getting the messaging? And can we prove that what we're doing is actually effective? So this is a really comprehensive list of topics that we've deemed the need to knows in the first few weeks of a go-to-market new hire. So let's go ahead and take a look behind the scenes of how we got there. So it wouldn't be a presentation of mine if I didn't throw in a Peloton GIF, but to solve for what topics are relevant to which role and at one point, I took my team through an exercise to track all of the work streams and all of the things that were happening in onboarding so we could find commonalities along the way. So I'll put an example on the screen here. The names of the sessions and the presenter names and the notes are blurred out, but we're actually going to be sharing these templates with all of you as a resource. So I'll be working with the WorkRamp team to get all this in your hands in a templatized version that you can all leverage for your own teams. But essentially, this is a G sheet that I created to facilitate the exercise, and we'll be sharing it with you all, like we mentioned. But I basically just first had everyone start by listing all the possible topics that would be beneficial to each role. And then what time in their ramp it would be beneficial. Should it be live? Should it be self-paced? Why is this an important topic? Why do we need to cover it in their onboarding? And how should we handle it? And what should we select from? So as you can see at the bottom of this screenshot, I had a sheet for every single go-to-market role, and I had each team member fill out the sheet that they're responsible for. And then what we did after this was we did an exercise together and found all the commonalities and defined, these are all the common topics that we're all leveraging in our past and like what's relevant to all the roles. So then we listed out all our go-to-market roles and everyone went in and just put check marks of like, hey, my person needs to go through this. Or if I have a new consultant starting, they need to be proficient in this. And from here, we were really able to take a step back, leverage the survey feedback, create some focus group, and connect with leaders to really define what the necessary topics were and how to shape up what our onboarding journey would look like and at what point in time were they necessary for a new hire. So For example, we might have someone in lead gen in an outbound business role, and they need to learn how to prospect on day one because that's what they're going to be doing all the time on the phones, versus an SMB rep, like they might actually be able to do that in week 2 or 3. So, because they might have some existing prospecting experience. So a lot of different areas that we kind of had to cross map and figure out what worked. And this was the method that we did to do that. And then we divided and conquered and embodied one of our core values at Box, which is GSD, get shit done. And we just got it done and scoped out our current onboarding plans. So what's next for us? We have a lot of goals, and this is what I'm looking to do next with the team. So really continue and develop role-specific pathways for each go-to-market role that we support. I want to get better at tracking metrics in our KPIs to prove onboarding effectiveness. Try to standardize as much as possible. As you all know, being in this remote environment makes things a little difficult. And we have so many different roles we're onboarding for, like finding ways to make our lives easier and more efficient. And then also start to scope out what that future hybrid model looks like once our offices reopen again. So thanks all for being here to kind of walk through our journey at Box and how we got to where we are today with onboarding. And Danielle, back over to you for questions.
Wow. Okay. This was amazing. I need the spreadsheet. I feel like I just learned a ton from this framework, and I know I have some questions as well. And we have some from the audience here too. My first question that's coming to mind is, how did you go about finding that right balance between virtual classroom and kind of go at your own pace learning when setting up this onboarding?
Great question. And this actually took a lot of conversations, survey feedback, and a ton of logistics. So as people were onboarding in our remote environment, I actually think the first class we had in April probably rolled their eyes every time they saw my name in Slack. I was asking them daily, like, what'd you think of this? Like, would you rather have it this way? Like, tell me what you got out of that. And we actually found through all that research and feedback that our sweet spot was actually 6 days of live virtual classroom training on Zoom, coupled with that go at your pace learning. And that's how we landed on the 2 live weeks, coupled with the WorkRamp learning pathways based on role. As I said, the hardest part we had was catering to those multiple time zones. So what we found was our sweet spot was now we just run those live sessions from 8 to 10 Pacific time that entire week. So we have like the set time everyone attends. And then the self-paced gives room for more role-specific learning and time management. So for example, if I have someone starting in EMEA, they can wake up and start their virtual curriculum, and then they join BoxCamp Live at the end of the day, and then vice versa for someone in California who will go to live BoxCamp in the morning and then end their day with the self-paced content. But for now, our feedback model has been pretty positive on our current model. So we look forward to iterating as we go this year.
Amazing. Great answer. Thank you for that. And a question we just got from Jose in the audience that I had as well, actually, is what metrics do you use or KPIs are you tracking for BoxCamp? Like, what metrics are you looking at for an individual going through onboarding to see if they're successful? Would love if you could talk us through that thought process.
Absolutely. Great question, Jose. So WorkRamp has actually been critical to helping us track those foundational metrics on completion. But for us, and me especially this fiscal, being more metrics driven is really a big sweet spot for us. So for AEs, I measure success with time to first X size deal. So let's say ramping quota, let's just say hypothetically, I'm going to make up a number, it's $50,000. How many days does it take a current rep to get to their first 50K deal? And how can I decrease that in half or cut it so it's, 5 days to first 50K deal, which would be great. We can also measure it by the size of the deal, the scope of the deal, or if it's like a net new logo versus an install base. For consulting roles, how I measure is time to first billable hour. When are they billable and when are they consulting on real projects and logging hours? For like a lead gen role, I'd say first opportunity or first meeting booked for a rep, and so on and so forth for the other roles.
Great. Okay, this is super helpful. He had also asked along with that, how are we tracking that feedback that you're soliciting from new hires? Is it through surveys? Curious about that too.
Yes, great question. So actually the last item of BoxCamp Live, when we do our official graduation, is we actually send out a Google survey, and we actually do it through a WorkRamp guide. So we send the guide out, the survey is embedded, the Google Forms embedded into our WorkRamp guide. And then how we get everyone to do the survey, this is probably, not great sharing this, but we offer swag at the end of BoxCamp. So you can get a really nice crew neck, but you can't get the crew neck until you complete the survey. So once you hit complete, you get the email to fill out your address for the swag. So it's kind of prompted us getting a lot of good feedback. But yeah, we capture it mostly in survey data. We also do a lot of communication with the frontline managers and the skip level managers. So at the end of every BoxCamp, we send a summary out to all people managers who had a new hire, sharing some highlights and asking for feedback. And a lot of it's just crowdsourced as well.
Awesome. By the way, I don't think there's any shame in soliciting feedback with swag as the incentive. We all know we're very motivated by swag.
They're very nice, comfortable crew necks. And we used to give t-shirts, but we're like, everyone's at home. They want more loungewear.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. I may or may not be wearing my WorkRamp joggers right now. So, so Jessica asked, how does the internal mobility program, for example, from Inbound SDR to Outbound SDR to SMB AE, moving up the ranks there, how does that differ from general onboarding plans?
Yeah, great question, Jessica. And it's something we're actually working on right now to build and scale and structure. So we're just in the initial scoping stage, but we call our internal mobility program at Box Elevate. And actually, primarily, most of our SMB reps all come from a lead gen role, which is awesome. But it does differ a bit. So we try to do these programs that prep them for their interviews. So essentially about 4 to 5 weeks before they start interviewing, their manager will come to us and be like, hey, these people are ready to go up for Elevate and they're going to start interviewing soon. So for inbound SDRs and outbound OBRs today, what that looks like is interview prep or presentation prep, or how to go from, tactical to strategic, and how to start worrying about territory plans and how to start carving out your time. And something from like an OBR to an AE or mid-market or enterprise for all our specific segments kind of follow about the same.
Awesome. Great answer. I'm needing to think about this as we do some of this type of onboarding at WorkRamp right now. So Terry asked, how do you decide how much product training to do versus sales training? Also asked, like, what continuous trainings beyond the first couple weeks do you do with people who are onboarding or perhaps finished with onboarding?
Yeah, great question, Terry. So as far as deciding how much product versus sales, I think in the beginning, we try to kind of give them as much as we can before they're out in the field and on calls and busy. So I'd say the beauty of our product too is we use it all through onboarding. So everyone gets very familiar with using our own product or drinking from the fire hose or, whatever they say, their own champagne. In addition to that, we couple it with sales training. So I'd say for our more junior roles, like our lead generation teams and our SMB account executives, we actually do a lot more on the sales and skills side. Whereas someone who, might be more tenured joining our enterprise teams, we might focus a little more on product there. But as far as kind of splitting the both, it's really just what our programs are designed for and what our leaders are coming to us with what the need is at the time. As far as continuous training beyond the first couple of weeks, we have our Everboarding Always plan where we have continuous enablement sessions throughout the year. Might be along the lines of our fundamentals program, which is really that sales training. It's like prospecting, discovery, all that good stuff. And then if we have like product launches, like those will be covered on our biweekly enablement calls that we run every other Tuesday. So we try to keep it as streamlined and simple as possible. But, if we're going to launch a new product or launch a change in our corporate messaging, like we'll either do a live training or decide if that's something we can do in WorkRamp as well.
Cool. Makes total sense. So one thing I noticed in looking at that incredible spreadsheet was a lot of these go-to-market roles obviously do many of the same trainings as kind of building blocks in their overall onboarding or ever learning or everboarding path. So Julie had asked kind of along those lines, do you have any practical tips as to not have to reinvent the wheel every time and be efficient when creating content, either in terms of kind of workload for people, content creation efforts, using the LMS effectively, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys just released a new feature that actually solves for that too, which we're looking into and really excited about. So you guys should all look into that. But we actually structured our instance in a way where we have checks and balances with every piece of content that gets published. So we have a strict course outline that every content creator has to follow. So all of our content is uniformed. And Jen from WorkRamp actually helped us scope that out in the early phases of our implementation. So as far as having everyone have that streamlined and content that they can follow within an outline, in Reinventing the Wheel, a lot of it's just best practice sharing. So that exercise I just walked you all through in the slides where we did that whole G sheet, like we actually learned that, hey, you know what? We actually have 5 different people teaching on a tool right now. Like, why are we doing this 5 times a month where we could do it once a month? Everyone's using the tool in the same way. So finding those consistencies and being able to rinse and repeat content, I think stems from having strong communication within the team as well.
Cool. Great answer. Thank you. So we had a really great question from Michelle, and I had the same one. I'll admit, as you transition back into offices or even hybrid work from home / work from office schedules for people, how are you planning on kind of balancing the online learning and the classroom sessions and in person? Can you give us any insight into what you're thinking of doing there?
Totally. It's definitely what keeps me up at night right now.
The hot topic.
We're currently scoping out what we're going to do. And I think the difficult thing we're experiencing right now is what that experience looks like. So if half of the group is live and half is online, like how is the person who's sitting at home dialed into a room full of live people going to feel with their learning experience? And at the end of the day, everyone has a little different learning style. So we're going to have to be able to adapt to that. We've talked about having more of a foundational program like we do today and keeping the exact model I just shared with you all. And then maybe at month 1 or 2, flying everyone out for like a more sales specific boot camp if they're comfortable with traveling. The other area we're kind of toying with is like if we move this to more of a regional model. So for example, let's say instead of coming to headquarters for a live session, you would go to whichever office was closest to you and we would figure out from there what to do. But I think we're no matter what happens, there's always going to be an environment of like half online, half live. And we're just going to have to figure out what that balance is, especially as people start returning to the office and what their comfort levels are.
Got it. That's definitely a smart way to look at it, I would say. The learner experience must have changed a lot as we've shifted to virtual onboarding. And so I'm seeing questions from the audience too. Another good one from Melissa was, are you putting them through 8-hour virtual days or is it more daily check-ins, discussions? And along with that, I'm curious if you could illuminate for me, like, how do you think about how the learner experience has shifted and how are you taking that into account when kind of structuring these box camps now?
Yeah, great question, Melissa. I mean, we all know that Zoom fatigue is just real, and I hate saying it. It's so cliche. I think the most common phrase said last year was like, "Am I on mute?" or something like that. But if they're not 8 hours a day, they would probably hate me if I made them sit on a Zoom for 8 hours a day. Our live virtual training runs for 2 hours a day, and in addition to that, there might be check-ins or more role-specific sessions outside of that 2-hour window. But for BoxCamp, we're just committed to 2 hours live per day on that Zoom. Everything else is self-paced.
Got it. A question that goes along with that from Chelsea in the audience. She mentioned our company struggles, especially in virtually training new reps on using the tech stack for day-to-day activities. So things like Salesforce, outreach, et cetera. Do you have any tips or best practices or even kind of like learn by doing activities your team has built out to train folks on complex systems in a digestible way that's online?
Great question, Chelsea. We actually had that same struggle and we're working on fixing it right now. So a great member of my team, her name is Leanne McMullen, recently joined and she's really scoping out our whole tools enablement plan. You guys should hit her up on LinkedIn. But anyways, what we are leveraging is we're kind of creating a tools library for all these tools. So there's a place everyone can go to get help that's more a la carte based on what tool they need and what role. And we're actually scoping out the outlines. We've been meeting on that this afternoon, but we're going to start out by like what the tool is, how you'll use this tool, and then resources and things like that. But for Salesforce, I'm actually really excited about this project. We're actually leveraging a sandbox instance and we're going to build a simulation for all new hires. So they'll actually be following a case study being like, hey, you just got a meeting. Like now you have to go create an opportunity and they'll physically have to do it in that sandbox. And then we don't have to worry about anyone messing anything up. For outreach, similar, we have everyone actually right now complete a WorkRamp guide on account setup. And we leverage IRAD, which sits on top of WorkRamp. And it's an awesome tutorials tool that kind of lets them physically click through what they have to do. And then followed by that, we do live outreach training. That's role specific.
Awesome. So we had a couple of questions come in about kind of executive sponsorship of the BoxCamp and go-to-market enablement in general. So I'm curious, how do you get stakeholder support either from leadership or from other teams that need to be involved with training? And then along with that, Jose kind of asked, like, once you have the support and you've run the program, what metrics are you communicating back to sales leadership specifically after each onboarding class?
Yes, great question. This is the $1 million question for anyone in enablement. Yep. But I'd say when it comes to working with leaders, like really building that trust with them and becoming the trusted advisor is what works for us. So all of my stakeholder leaders, they're very clear on what my plans are each quarter. They're very clear on what onboarding looks like. And throughout the onboarding journey of any of their new reps, I'm constantly communicating with them and sharing back best practices. Like, hey, like Dylan just volunteered in BoxCamp, did an awesome job giving me the pitch, like really strong work, things like that. And then also at the end of each program, I provide like weekly updates to the leader. So they'll say, hey, these people completed BoxCamp this week, they graduated. Now they're going to go into 30, 60, 90. And within the 30, 60, 90, there's clear checkpoints where managers can look and see where they are in their ramp.
Cool. Amazing. Mary asked, to what degree is coaching leveraged in the Box program? How do you, in the BoxCamp program, sorry.
Yeah. So all of our live sessions that are on Zoom in that 2-hour window I mentioned daily, they're actually all experiential. So there's always some sort of role play or activity or sort of thing that they have to physically do. And we go in breakout rooms a lot. There's a lot of games. So coaching is definitely leveraged a ton, especially when we go into week 2. And we spend a lot of time on this with objection handling when it comes to positioning against our competitors. And then also in giving our corporate messaging. I would also add that we recently rolled out Gong to our sales team back in February, and that's actually helped a lot with coaching, because what we do is we'll actually take some Gong examples and have the new hires in onboarding pretend as if they were going to coach someone who previously did the call, like how they would handle that.
Okay, great answer. This is also helpful. So another question was, do you do any type of competency or pre-assessment of new hires to determine what core skills should be offered for them? And, you know, the next step for that would be like of tenured reps. Are we also doing assessments to understand which upskills and core skill sessions should be offered for them? That was from Michelle.
That's a great question, Michelle. And we've actually visited this multiple times. We actually tried this a few years ago. So we had everyone take a quiz when they joined. And then based on their scoring on the quiz, that would kind of place like what they needed to take and what they kind of tested out of. The model actually didn't stick that long because we didn't have an automated way of doing it. It became very manual and hard to keep up with. But I think moving forward, I'd love to get to a place where we could do that. As far as upskills and things like that, like I feel like most people who join are hungry to learn more, and like refreshers never hurt. But when it comes to existing programs that we're running, so for example, I ran a discovery training 2 weeks ago, and then there were some reps that have been pretty tenured that their managers were like, you don't have to attend, you're pretty good at discovery, so feel free to sit this one out. So a lot of it's based on like what the manager might say, but we don't have any form of self-assessment today. But that's actually a good call. We should look at that again.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion for sure. Dan had a follow-up to the coaching question. He's curious if Box leverages any live coaching. Are sales managers also receiving coaching? Just curious your overall approach to coaching within BoxCamp.
Yeah, absolutely. So a member of my team named Sophie Kelly, who's based in EMEA, just recently started owning manager enablement, and she's done some tremendous work with this. Awesome. And we're actually, I feel like we're leaning more on the coaching to the managers right now, actually, which I love. But the approach is really holistic right now. It's more crowdsourced topics of what they're looking for. And then we'll partner with the managers to figure out how we deliver that in the most effective way. We also have our talent and belonging side of the house who owns our new hire orientation program. And I think they have some programs, they leverage some tools like BetterUp and other programs like that to foster more like leadership mindsets. But as far as like sales skills or any go-to-market specific skills, Sophie on my team manages those and does an awesome job.
Okay, that's awesome. I love all the shout outs to the amazing people you work with.
Great.
Couple of questions around making learning feel fun, I would say. That's the theme of these other two. So Jess had asked, and this is a question on my mind as well, how do you make self-serve learning feel less impersonal?
Great question. And it's not easy. And I'd say for us, it was just making it as real as possible. So showcasing real examples, sharing real stories. I also never thought Slack would become such a big engagement to learning, but it has. And we have cohort channels, or whenever we do trainings, we have Slack threads, and they kind of just blow up and people add from each other's energies. And we're a huge gift culture, so people will send around gifts all day. But honestly, it's just making the learning as engaging as possible and making it as applicable as possible. And I think there's a lot we can actually do with WorkRamp. I actually made everyone on my team take the WorkRamp instructional design course. And I feel like since then, our trainings have become a little more exciting and have a lot more engagement through them. But it's definitely a hot topic, and it's still something I think we've mastered and we can improve on. So curious to hear all of your thoughts too, to anyone on the call, if you have a winning mindset for making self-serve more personal.
Yes. Another question that to me is in the same energy is from Gina. Have you used any great team building or icebreaker activities that you'd recommend that works well with new hires over Zoom?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you looked at my Google search history the week we went remote, like you probably would have seen some. I was just looking, I was reading every article out there on like great icebreakers. So this is a BoxCamp tradition that we always do for intros, and we call it the 4 C's. Every single person who's gone through BoxCamp has had to do it. Every single presenter has to do it. And it stands for your first concert, your favorite cuisine, a country you want to visit, and a celebrity, dead or alive, you'd want to spend the day with. And this has always been our BoxCamp foundation. And we're actually live in a classroom. We would use the first concerts to make our playlist for the week, because it's a great way to cater to everyone in the room by giving them a throwback of their first concert. But our favorite icebreaker activity that we do now actually is every single BoxCamp we kick off after we do intros, we play the 10 movie game, and everyone on the Zoom has to figure out 10 movies that everyone in the group has watched. And it sounds very little, but it's actually an activity that everyone loves. And you learn like how quickly people bond over movies they've seen. We did learn a way to limit it to only 5 Disney or Pixar though.
Okay, this was great. I'm throwing mine in the chat. I'd love to hear what other people say for their 4 C's. Okay, that's a great question. I'm going to start doing that with my team.
Yeah.
All right. I want to move forward into kind of our wrap up section and talk about your learnings from running BoxCamp, both in person and remote, and now maybe in this hybrid model. I know hindsight is 2020, as they say. So if you could roll out BoxCamp again, are there areas you'd put any more emphasis in, or what would you do differently in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think moving forward, like the big hot topic that will be on my mind and my team's mind is like what the return to office looks like in travel as we prep for the next phase. But through the past years and iterations and versions, like we have notebooks of lessons learned. Like honestly, I actually think my WorkRamp notebook is the one I'm using right now. But I'm a huge note taker. So I have pages and pages of like things. Like I have a notebook specific to BoxCamp lessons, and I will just throw stuff in there. So whenever I'm stuck or want to go look for ideas, I kind of just go back and like look at what I've written in the past few years. But looking back, if I could redo everything I've done here, I think I would have focused more on role specifics earlier and focused on metrics and KPIs earlier, which we're now on the path to solve for and have some good programs in place to support.
Great learning. And what is next for BoxCamp? Can you give us a teaser trailer?
So next up is adjusting to this hybrid return to the office model. So what will in-person versus remote experiences look like, and how do we cater to all these different audiences and give them the same experience? So if anyone has ideas, please message me on LinkedIn, because I would love to hear what you're all thinking too.
Amazing. I think we're getting pretty close to the wrap up here. I know, Gabby, are you by any chance growing the team? Any shameless plugs you want to throw out there?
I have a shameless plug. So we're hiring for 2 roles right now. So if anyone out there is interested in an enablement role, please reach out. One of the roles is actually based in EMEA. So if you have anyone in London, would love to learn. And our other role will be based in the US.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everyone who joined today, and especially Jamin and Dan, who threw up their 4 C's in the chat with me. We're seeing some really strong answers. This is great. Kid Rock, that's a fun first concert. So yeah, I wanted to thank everybody for showing up. We hope you took away a lot of great ideas from this. I know I did. Feel free to connect with myself and Gabby on LinkedIn. I know I speak for everybody in the room today when I say we love talking about all things enablement and learning from each other. So thanks everyone for making this session so great. And until next time.
Yes, thanks so much, team, for having me. This was really fun.
Thanks for joining. Awesome. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Gabby.
Thank you.